All right. So you wanted to take a deep dive into Greg Peters, right?
Yeah.
The tech-minded co-CEO over at Netflix.
Yeah.
But to really get him, like, we have to understand his counterpart, right? Ted Sarandos.
Right.
And the kind of crazy world of streaming they're navigating together.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating story. Like, in 2023, Netflix decided to go with this whole co-CEO structure.
Yeah.
And, not many companies can pull this off successfully.
Right.
SAP and Salesforce come to mind. They tried it and eventually just reverted back to a single CEO.
So why did Netflix think they could make it work? And is it actually working?
I think that's the million-dollar question, right? A lot of experts will tell you that transparency is really important, as well as, clearly defined roles and a strong foundation of mutual respect. And from what we've gathered, Netflix seems to have those things down, Pat. But I think the real intrigue is how this whole tale of two leaders thing actually plays out in practice.
Okay, so let's start with Ted Sarandos then, the content king. He's been at Netflix forever. And he's really built their original content empire, like from scratch. Think House of Cards, Stranger Things, Squid Game. These shows weren't just hits, they were game changers.
Yeah, for sure. And, Sarandos' background is all about what we watch, right? I mean, he's responsible for the content itself, the marketing that gets us all excited about it, and then, of course, all the communication surrounding those shows. But he's also, by all accounts, very passionate about telling stories from around the world and showcasing diverse voices, really pushing the boundaries of what we expect from our entertainment.
And while Sarandos is curating this global tapestry of stories, you have Greg Peters, our tech and strategy guru, who is laser focused on how those stories actually reach your screen.
Absolutely. And this is where I think Peters' deep technical expertise really shines through. And we're not just talking about, a passing familiarity with tech here. This is the guy who holds patents related to streaming technology. For example, one of his patents focuses on optimizing video delivery based on network conditions. So, the next time your Netflix show seamlessly adjusts to your internet speed, you might have Peters to thank.
That's impressive. So
Yeah.
he's not just keeping the lights on, he's designing the entire power grid for how we experience Netflix. But he's also the one looking ahead, right? Like he's the one who championed those ad-supported plans.
Yeah.
He even dipped their toes into the gaming world.
Exactly. He's constantly thinking about how to keep Netflix ahead of the curve, both technologically but also financially.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. The streaming world is incredibly complex. You've got fierce competition from other streaming services, constantly evolving consumer habits, and then the rapid, technological advancements that are always happening.
So it's not just about having a great platform today. It's about anticipating what that platform needs to become tomorrow.
Exactly.
And Peters is at the helm of that ship.
Yeah, and this is where I think their dynamic gets really intriguing. You've got Sarandos, the creative visionary, shaping the stories we consume, and then you've got Peters, this tech strategist, building the bridge to deliver those stories seamlessly. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance.
A well-oiled machine.
Right?
At least for now.
Right.
But can this co-CEO model withstand the pressure of such a demanding industry? Let's look at the numbers.
Okay, so in the first quarter of 2024, Netflix added, get this, 9.3 million new subscribers.
Wow.
And they pulled in $9.37 billion in revenue.
Okay.
So at least on paper,
Yeah.
their strategy seems to be paying off.
Okay, but numbers only tell part of the story.
Yeah.
Right.
Are they truly a united front? Or is this co-CEO thing just a clever PR move? Are they actually working in harmony?
Yeah, this is where I think their commitment to transparency is really crucial. Both CEOs have stated publicly that engaging with one is the same as speaking to both.
Interesting.
There's no need to, jump through hoops or play these guessing games.
It sounds like they're serious about presenting that united front.
Yeah.
But with such distinct roles, how do their individual backgrounds and personalities influence their leadership? Are they more like two sides of the same coin?
Yeah.
Or do their differences create friction?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting because, on the surface, they seem like an unlikely pairing. You've got Sarandos, right? This charismatic Hollywood insider who is known for, his bold creative bets. And then you have Peters, this quiet tech strategist who's always, analyzing data and thinking several steps ahead. And you might think that those contrasting styles would clash, but some would argue that it's this very difference that makes their partnership so effective.
Okay.
It's like having two brains, right?
Right.
With complementary strengths tackling the same problem.
So a classic case of opposites attract, fueling their success.
Right.
But wouldn't that also create a higher risk of things going off the rails?
Yeah.
Like, What happens when their visions don't align? Especially when it comes to making those big decisions. Who gets the final say?
That is the billion-dollar question. And unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
But I think we can look at their track record. Take, for instance, Netflix's move into gaming.
Yeah.
That's a bold strategy, right?
Right.
One that diverges from their kind of core competency of streaming video content.
It's a gamble.
Yep.
And it could be seen as kind of a direct result of Peters' influence, given his tech background and his focus on innovation and those new markets.
Exactly. And it's a move that hasn't yet yielded, significant returns.
Right.
So you have to wonder, was this a point of contention between the two CEOs? Did Sarandos, with his deep understanding of the entertainment landscape, have reservations about diverting resources to a completely different arena?
Yeah, it's fascinating to kind of consider how they navigate those potentially choppy waters. Because even with, clearly defined roles and that commitment to transparency, there are bound to be times when their views diverge.
Absolutely. And it's not just those internal challenges that they need to contend with.
Right.
The streaming landscape itself is in constant flux. New competitors are emerging all the time, all vying for subscribers' attention. And ultimately, their wallets.
Their monthly subscriptions.
Exactly. So you've got, the established players like Disney Plus and HBO Max, and then you've got, this slew of these niche streaming services popping up.
And let's not forget about good old-fashioned cable, which is still hanging on.
Right. It's a crowded market.
Even if it's a shadow of its former self.
Exactly. And on top of that, you have the constantly evolving technological landscape. I mean, we're talking the rise of virtual reality, augmented reality, and who knows what's next?
Right.
Netflix can't afford to be complacent. They need to stay ahead of the curve or risk, being left behind.
It's like they're playing this high-stakes game of chess where they're trying to anticipate their competitor's next move, but also, simultaneously, they're trying to invent a whole new game altogether.
Right, and that's where I think Peter's focus on innovation becomes, even more critical. His push for those ad-supported plans, for instance, that demonstrates a willingness to adapt, and experiment with those new business models, especially as the streaming market, is becoming increasingly saturated.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, though, right?
It is.
Because attracting new subscribers with those cheaper ad-supported options might seem like a good idea in the short term, but it also risks alienating your existing subscriber base who are used to that ad-free experience.
Exactly. And that's where I think Sarandos's expertise in content becomes paramount, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
content is king. You can have the slickest streaming platform in the world, but if you don't have compelling content, if you don't have stuff that people actually want to watch, then it's all for nothing.
They need to be firing on all cylinders. They need Sarandos to keep delivering those binge-worthy shows. And they need Peters to ensure that those shows are delivered seamlessly to our living rooms, all while navigating this crazy landscape of the streaming wars. It's a high-wire act, there's no doubt about it. But what does this intricate dance of content and technology, of creative vision and strategic execution actually mean for the future of Netflix?
Right.
And how does this all circle back to Greg Peters, who we started off wanting to understand a little bit better?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But when we kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that Peters' role isn't just about the technology.
Right.
It's about positioning Netflix for a future where streaming is likely to be even more complex, even more competitive, and let's face it, even more central to how we consume our entertainment.
So is this co-CEO structure,
Yeah.
with its potential for both, synergy and conflict, a sustainable model for that future? Or is it just, a stepping stone to something else?
Well, some people, some industry analysts believe that this might actually be a transitional phase,
Yeah.
a way of sort of preparing for one of them to eventually,
Take the reins.
take the reins solo. Exactly. And it begs the question, is Netflix grooming one of these guys for that ultimate leadership position? And if so, who will it be?
Now, that's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, which leadership style is going to be more important in the long run? Will it be Sarandos's keen eye for those compelling narratives?
Go.
Or is it going to be Peter's strategic foresight in what is a rapidly evolving tech landscape?
And here's another intriguing thought,
Okay.
What if this whole unconventional structure, what if it isn't about one CEO, outshining the other? What if it's actually about redefining leadership itself?
Okay.
Perhaps in a world that is grappling with, unprecedented technological advancements and these shifting consumer behaviors that are happening so rapidly,
Yeah.
the traditional model of a single CEO, I mean, maybe that just becomes outdated.
So instead of one captain steering the ship, we might see more companies embracing this co-CEO model,
Hmm.
especially industries like, tech, entertainment, that are constantly being disrupted, redefined.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of two distinct perspectives,
Yeah.
two sets of experiences to navigate the complexities of a world that's changing really fast.
It's a fascinating takeaway. We started out just trying to understand Greg Peters a little bit better, and we ended up questioning the very nature of leadership in the 21st century.
Right. And it all comes back to that initial question.
Is it working?
Is it working? Well, I mean, if success is measured by things like subscriber growth, revenue, and, that constant buzz of anticipation for what they're going to come up with next, then Netflix's co-CEO model seems to be, defying the odds.
At least for now.
For now, yeah.
But as we've kind of gone over today, the streaming landscape is anything but predictable.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, this dynamic duo has given us a lot to think about.
For sure. And ultimately, I mean, it's up to, each of us to decide whether we believe their leadership is really steering Netflix and, maybe even the future of entertainment in the right direction.
It's been an enlightening deep dive, that's for sure. We've explored the intricacies of shared leadership, the power of content in this increasingly digital age, and of course the challenges of staying ahead of the curve in such a fast-moving industry.
And perhaps most importantly, we've been reminded that even in the world of business, where numbers and strategies often dominate the conversation, it's often that human element, the personalities, the partnerships, that really shape the stories that unfold.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of Netflix and the two co-CEOs who are, right now at least, writing its next chapter.